Hey y'all, Big Tim here. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Old School and Bass with Big Tim. Today we're going to talk about something that maybe you've been thinking about, maybe you've been wrestling with. Am I ready to fish a tournament? Well, let me tell you, most everybody, if you're ready to fish, you're ready to fish a tournament. There's all kinds of ways to get involved, and it's a great place to learn. The more people you fish with, the more you're going to learn. So don't think that I have to be a little bit, more skilled or, maybe I need to learn to catch more fish. Don't get me wrong, that could help. You could always get out and do a little practicing on your own. But a tournament is a great place to learn because, like I said, you fish with more people, you'll learn different things. There's several different kinds of tournaments out there that you can start with. There's club tournaments, there's team tournaments, and individual performance tournaments. Okay, the club tournaments, some of those vary. Sometimes you work as a team and trying to catch fish together. Now, if you decide you want to do a team tournament from club standpoint, hopefully you've got a buddy that has a boat or you have a boat and you both want to get out together. Now, if you're, just starting out, know it's going to be fairly difficult. It's not something that you're going to jump into and start winning lots of money. And I'll be honest with you, if you want to fish tournaments to make money, you might want to find something else to do, because I was watching one of the fairly bigger tournaments, the BFLs we had, just had one at Dale Hollow a couple weeks ago. And a friend of mine ended up coming in sixth place, and I think he ended up getting like $700. And I was thinking about that, and he probably spent about $700 to get in it. So you think that sixth place is really good in a tournament, and it is. It is pretty good considering there's 100 other guys out there 99, I guess, that you've done better than them, and you feel pretty good about yourself. So you think you're going to get a nice check, and I guess $700 is a nice check. If you didn't spend $700 to get down to the tournament and pay for your lodging and your entry fee and everything else. So if you're getting into tournaments to make money, probably not the greatest thing. A lot of the big name anglers on the Elite Series and stuff like that, a lot of them aren't making a lot of money. The Kevin Van Dams, stuff like that, sure, they're making tons of money, but most of their money is coming from endorsements. So reconsider if you think you're going to make a bunch of money. Probably not going to happen. It's like a needle in a haystack, or you might get struck by lightning. So reconsider that. It's going to cost a lot of money to get involved in tournament fishing. Whether you go as a boater or non-boater, it's still going to cost a bunch of money. But first off, let's go back to the different tournament styles. One of the first and easiest ones to get involved with is club tournaments. Now, clubs are kind of getting to be a thing of the past, and they're getting to be hard to find because there's so many team tournaments out there that you can go fish with your buddy. But we'll talk about those in a minute. But there are several types of clubs out there. One way to find them is to get involved with the Bass Nation, and you can, call or type somebody from the Bass Nation and ask them if there's a local club that you can join. Most of the time, the local clubs will have regional tournaments or, fairly close tournaments that keep them fairly inexpensive. But even still, you got to pay for boat gas, entry fees, possibly lodging if you're going to go away somewhere. So keep that in mind. Club tournaments are generally smaller. You don't have as many competitors. Now, there are some clubs out there that are pretty big. But for the most part, you're probably talking anywhere from 6 to 20 boats. And it's a great place to get started. Another place to get started, one of the tournament trails that I enjoyed was the Bass Nation, like right here, Kentucky Bass Nation, and the Kentucky Bass Federation. The Kentucky Bass Nation is affiliated with BASS, so you have to have your BASS fees paid in full. And you can find them, I think it's kybassnation.org. And the Kentucky Bass Federation, they're another organization. They're a little different on how they do things. They're a little bit more regional regionally affiliated, I guess you'd say. Like for me, there's probably 6 tournaments that I can fish within 50 miles of the house. That's pretty good, you know. I don't have to do a lot of travel. Their website, and I'll put them down below too, but their website is kybassfed.com. That's all one word, at kybassfed.com. You can find the list of their schedules, rules, everything else like that. Those are individual based. Those are draw tournaments. Basically what you'll do is, if you're a boater, you're going to go and draw possibly a non-boater that maybe you do or maybe you don't know. So you never know who's going to be your boat. That's how they keep it honest, and it's a good deal. That's the same way for Kentucky Bass Nation and the Kentucky Bass Federation. And when I say Kentucky, that's because that's where we're from here. I'm from Kentucky. I'm in northern Kentucky. Kentucky Bass Federation is affiliated with TBF, which is called the Bass Federation. If you're in another state, Ohio, Indiana, or whatever, you can look for the Indiana Bass Federation, or the Ohio Bass Federation, or the Ohio Bass Nation, or the Indiana Bass Nation. Almost every state has an affiliation, and they'll explain to you how you can get started. Another way that you can get started into bass fishing in tournaments is going through the BFL Series. The local BFL Series is a little bit more regional. They'll generally have 5 tournaments actually. 4 regular one-day tournaments and then a 2-day at the end of the year. Locally around here, we have the BFL Mountain Division. Those guys generally fish Dale Hollow, Cumberland, and Barron. And we have the Buckeye Division, which generally fishes the Ohio River, St. Mary's, Indian Lake in Ohio. And then we have the Hoosier Division, which fishes like Monroe, Patoka, and Rocky Fork on the river. Then if you go out further west, you also have the LBL Division for the land between the lakes. That's probably one of the toughest divisions in BFL. But I mean, they're all pretty tough, don't get me wrong. Those guys, they're looking to score some money. And if you win, yeah, you can win a really good pocket full of cash. I think most of the time the winners, excluding some of the deals that they may have from different manufacturers for having this particular boat or wearing this particular clothing or sunglasses, their payday a lot of times can be around $4,000. So that's not bad for, a couple of days of fishing. But after second or third place, that money really drops tremendously. So there are a couple avenues that you can look at. Now, if you're a high school or college angler, they're going to offer high school and college tournaments for you. Basically, you have to establish your club, and I'm not an expert on how to set up your club. I would get in contact with either Bass Nation or the Bass Federation on how to set up your club for your high school or college team. They'll have different rules, different schedules, everything like that. But that's always an option. So give that a consideration. Now, one thing I want to talk about with tournament fishing is another one is the buddy tournaments. There's so many buddy tournaments out here. I mean, everybody that does anything involved in fishing has a tournament trail anymore. Whether you sell boats, whether you sell lures, everybody's got their own tournament trail. And that's kind of cool because it gives everybody an opportunity to go out and fish some tournaments. And on a team trail, you get to fish with your buddy. You guys show up to the ramp together, you get in the boat together, you fish all day together. The problem with that is sometimes it leads to a little, mischief, I guess. Sometimes some of the team tournaments, guys, because there can be some pretty good amounts of money involved, can do things a little shady. So you have to keep an eye on that. Hopefully the better ones are always going to have polygraph tests. Don't get me wrong, you can always beat a polygraph, but it is tougher. It's a shame that we have people that are so willing to go out and do that, because for me, fishing tournaments is about competition. Sure, the money's nice, don't get me wrong, but it's really about competition. You want to be able to say that I was the best fisherman on that particular day at that particular lake. Now, that being said, I don't want to be a boastful guy. I try not to be. I hope I'm not. Everybody gets caught up in the moment sometimes, and they like to brag a little bit, but it's not something I want to go around saying I'm the grand champion, and hold up some giant plaque, and that's just not me. But with team tournaments, a lot of times there is some pretty good money involved. I remember one of my partners and myself, we fished a 2-day tournament and finished third, and we ended up winning like $2,700, I think, that we split for a weekend of work, and we got to sleep in our own house, didn't have to travel really, didn't spend a lot of money for gas, and that's a pretty good payday. I think we got like $13.50 a piece or something like that. So $1,300 for a weekend's worth of work or pleasure, as fishing normally is. Sometimes it can be work, a lot of times it can be work, but there's a lot of opportunities for team tournaments. Now, one of the negative things that I have to say about team tournaments is the fact that they have pretty much killed the club tournament scene. Back in the 80s, everybody was fishing clubs because we didn't have these team trails. And I say trail, sometimes it's just an individual tournament, and sometimes it is a team trail. But since there are so many of the team tournaments and team trails, it has really decimated the club ranks. Clubs used to be just everywhere and huge, and they'd had a lot of numbers and a lot of different people. But the reason I don't like the fact that they've killed the club tournaments, and I don't want to say killed, they're basically on life support. There's not many out there. There may be some regions of the country that clubs are still pretty popular, but around here, not so much. There are a couple. But with the club circuit, you generally breed a lot of camaraderie. You make some real good friends. I'm not saying you're not going to make good friends on the rest of these tournaments, because I have, and most people have. But, you can really talk to a lot of the guys in your team or your club, and a lot of times they'll help you if you're struggling. Granted, they don't want to tell you something you're going to go blab it to everybody else. I mean, as far as fishermen go, we try to stay pretty secretive. Except for me, I guess here I am blabbing everything I know. But I'm doing that basically to try to help some of the younger guys out there. But if you were to go to a couple of the guys in your club that are generally the sticks, the guys that are really catching a lot of fish, say, man, I'm struggling. Most of the time, those guys, if you go to them on a one basis, they'll give you some information. They'll tell you some lures. They'll tell you where to go. Just different things, and that's going to help you out. Because if you just keep going out there and doing the same thing, thinking that you're going to run into them sometime, and you don't, you're not really going to learn much, and you're going to get frustrated, and you're probably going to quit. And so it behooves them to tell you a little information to keep you around so that the numbers stay bigger in the clubs. But that generally won't happen in a team circuit situation. You go up to another guy on another team, unless you know them well, they're probably not going to tell you how they caught them, where they caught them, or anything like that. So if you've decided you want to do tournaments, like I said, I'll drop a link down below. You'll probably have to cut and paste it, but it'll give you some ideas on where you can go to start thinking about tournament fishing. So I'll make a couple more episodes talking about what to expect more in depth, basically from a draw tournament and team tournament standpoint. You high schoolers and college guys, you probably ought to talk to some of the youth directors from the Bass Federation or the Bass Nation. They're probably going to be the best avenue to help get some information on how to get started and where you can go. So until the next episode, thanks, good fishing. And like I said, if you have any other questions, drop them below. Be sure to subscribe, share this with your buddies. I always say the more guys that we get, and girls. By the way, that's one of the reasons I always say, hey, y'all. First off, I'm from Kentucky. Y'all is an accepted term. But I also saw a lot of the videos out there, people start up and say, hey guys, and I always thought, what if my little niece wants to watch this? What if some of the girls at work want to watch this? Because we're getting more and more ladies involved in bass fishing, and you know, that's kind of cool. So anyway, share with your friends, and please subscribe, and the more we get out there, the better we can make things for you. So again, good fishing, and we'll see you next time.